Um, one second. So the outline of my presentation is as follows. I will begin with the objectives of the study, followed by Voice of America Learning English, which is the particular website that I use with my students, findings of the study, and I will wrap up with the conclusion of the study. The primary objective of the study is to report the effectiveness of the use of a particular website as an online extensive reading program. Specifically, I looked at 4 areas. The first is the students' reading speed. Second, I looked at if there is an improved mock IELTS reading score. Third, I looked at the perspective of the students on the use of the particular website and on the program itself. And fourth, to reflect on the teacher's perspective on the implementation of the online extensive reading program. So what motivated this research is the first, Education First English Proficiency Index in 2019 ranked Oman 92nd out of 100 countries participated. So for an English teacher like me, this finding does not look good. Second is the IELTS test statistic report in 2018, which indicated that the overall IELTS score for Oman is at band 5.22. If you look at the detail of the IELTS score, you will see that the reading band is at 4.93, the lowest, and the strength is on speaking, which is 5.55. Here I would like to share the 2 quotes from prominent speakers in the field of English language teaching. The first is Professor Crescent. For those of you familiar, for those who are not, he's one of the gurus in English language teaching. And in the conference, in Qatar University conference this year, he mentioned that we learned to write by reading, not from direct instruction on how to write and what to write. He even went to the extreme of saying that writing skills should not be tested and that the student's ability to read would reflect the ability to write. But that's a bit of an extreme view, but that's what he said in the conference. The next one is Professor Thomas Robb. He is prominent in the field, specifically in extensive reading. And in a conference organized by Middle East College in Muscat, he said that during this pandemic and online teaching, the most effective skill that a teacher can teach the student is reading. So here are the common issues and debates in extensive reading. ER stands for extensive reading. I understand that not everyone may be familiar with the concept of extensive reading. I will not get too detailed into this. Just touch base. So the first debate is, do we use simplified or modified form of text, or we use authentic text with the students? One of the characteristics of ER is to introduce students with easy reading materials. Professor Paul Nation, my former professor in New Zealand, defines easy as when a student can recognize 98% of the text. Some scholars disagree and said that if we offer students with a modified or simplified text, it gives a false impression to the students on the target language learned. The second debate is on the variety and quantity of extensive reading text. How much is enough? Some people define this as the number of hours, some define it as number of books, and some define it as the length of text. The third debate surrounding extensive reading is the role of the teacher. Do the teacher go hands-on, exploit the text in the teaching of content, grammar, and vocabulary, or do the teacher allow the students to make their own choices of the text, allow them to plan their own reading and progress independently? So these 3 are the common debates when we talk about extensive reading. So this is the particular website that I use with the students. It says Voice of America Learning English. If you go on Google and you key in Voice of America, it will bring out news text, which is similar to BBC, can be difficult and challenging for our students who are learning English. However, if you key in Voice of America Learning English, you get somewhat similar text, but in a simplified, modified manner, simplified English. Now, why did I choose this particular website? Previous study discovered that a threshold of 1,650 most common words in English is the key base level for students to achieve a band of 5.5 in the IELTS examination. So I ran some tests and I discovered that VOA Learning English based average about 1,500 word family, and majority of the text available on the website is non-fiction, which in my mind conceptually would help the student to be familiar with IELTS like reading text. To illustrate an example of what I was saying earlier, here's O. Henry's The Last Leaf. So you can see there's a Flashkin's Kit test. The original text, the grade level of the text is at 5.4. The reading is at 78.91. The average sentence length is 12.68. Now, the same text, modified text on VOA Learning English, the grade level dropped to 3.95. The ease of the reading increased to 84.1, and the average sentence length is now shorter, 9.73. Several other features of VOA Learning English. Most importantly, it is available online for free, and it's also available on shortwave radio. I haven't discovered the exact station. I did discover this in Malaysia though, but I don't know how many students actually listen to shortwave radio, but if they do, it is available there. And like I mentioned earlier, majority of the articles available on the website is based on the 1,500 word family. The syntax is simple and very few idioms. The materials available text, video, audio, multimodal, as previous study indicated that multimodal features aid the students' understanding and comprehension skills. Wide range of topics, a lot of which somewhat similar to what IELTS text would be about. It sounds like I'm promoting VOA Learning English really hard. Rest assured, I'm not promoted. I'm not sponsored by them. Next, we move on to the findings of the study. The first finding is on the reading speed. I gathered this finding from 3 students. Over the course of 10 weeks, student 1 and student 3 read about an average 3 articles a week. Student 2, an exception, read about 7 articles a week. And for all 3 students throughout the 10-week program, the reading speed is consistent at 100 words per minute. The next finding is on the IELTS, mock IELTS reading score. So I did a pre-test shortly before I began the program and a post-test shortly after. And statistics shows there is an improvement. And I also did a correlation test between the number of texts the student read and the effect on their scores. And it is a positive relationship, which simply means the more they read, the better their score is. The next finding is on the student's perspective on the use of the particular website, which is based on the modified simplified text, and on the program itself. I gathered this finding from 15 participants through conversation with them. The common themes that emerged from the conversation with them, I coded as presented. The first one is on the readability. Majority of the students attributed that the texts were easy to read, easy to follow when they listened to, and they were able to understand. If I could recall clearly, one of the students reflecting on his English learning experience said that majority of teachers told him that if he wants to be good in reading and writing, he has to read news, but he finds it really exhausting reading news that is really hard for him to understand, going on the dictionary, going back and forth, and then he lose the essence of what the news is all about. So having a news text that is easy to read, he finds that helpful. So that's positive. The second common theme is multimodality. The students attributed that the presence of the video and audio accompanied with the text aided their understanding of the topic. The third is vocabulary. So some of the text available on VOA, there's a text and there's a list of vocabulary, and the student liked that. In fact, one of the students said that had it not been for this list, she may not have encountered some of these words. So I take that as a very positive feedback from the student. The fourth is the motivation to read. So I asked the students if they would go on the website on their own and read the text without my intervention. And the responses that I got, majority of which is inshallah, which in my opinion doesn't quite sound promising. And one of the students said that when it's closer to her taking the examination, IELTS exam, she would read more. It seems to me there's a strong association, students' motivation to read, and if it has got to do with the exam, which I will discuss in the next slide. The next is the learning activities. So the text on the particular website, there's a text, a list of vocabulary, and some of the text accompanied with quizzes that the students can do to cross-check their understanding of their reading. The students did not like this. One of the students said, well, too many quizzes, teacher, we don't want to do anymore, which when I reflect back, it is what Professor Rosenblatt talked about, the difference between afferent reading and aesthetic reading, reading just for the sake of reading, reading for pleasure versus reading to learn. So majority of the students who participated in my research preferred read for the sake of reading. And lastly, incorporation of the ER program in the English proficiency course. So I asked the student, I asked their input if, what they think if ER is part of the English skill courses. The students did not like that either. Majority attributed it to the internet coverage and internet speed that can be challenging for them. The next finding is the course instructors reflection. So I played dual role. I'm the researcher as well as the teacher. Now I thought 72 students, I invited 70 students, out of which 15 students somewhat participated, and out of which only 3 actively participated. And the responses that I get is that, is this going to be in the exam, teacher? The students' motivation to read here has a lot to do, unless it has anything to do with exam, that's when they see the significance of reading. So that's my first reflection. And the second one is the teacher's role in the extensive reading program. Do I exploit the text, use it as part of my classroom teaching and learning, or do I allow the students to read on their own? Now, I found myself caught in between somewhere in which I have to model good reading practices. I did not use the text as part of my classroom teaching and learning. However, it does require me to share, talk about it, share links with the students, persistent encouraging them to read, which got me reading as well. So the conclusion that I can draw from this particular research is that over the 10 weeks, the students showed consistent at the reading speed of an average 100 word per minute. The data showed a positive outcome on the students' mock IELTS reading score and a significant correlation between the number of texts they read to their post-test score. Now, these statistical findings provided somewhat an evidence for the consideration of incorporating online extensive reading in English skill courses. The responses from the quantitative and qualitative inquiry built a case for the use of simplified and modified text in language skill classroom to encourage more reading. As course instructors of English language skill classroom, not only we played the role to model good reading practices, we also have to be resourceful in providing the students an avenue for them to explore a variety of reading materials. VOA Learning English is one of many examples. And finally, to motivate and to establish a reading culture that goes beyond the need for passing examination, I believe it requires a nationwide reading motivation campaign so that students and parents can draw the link between the benefits, the long-term benefits of extensive reading to lifelong learning, which, as many of us know, is an important aspect of Oman Vision 2040. Short and simple, this is my references. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you so much, Doctor. So if anyone has any questions, so kindly write on the chat box. So I'll convey it to Dr. Shireen. So Doctor, when did you conducted this research? Basically,
Shortly before the coronavirus started and continued after, so it was last semester.
for, for last semester.
Yeah.
Okay. And it was about your class, yeah?
Yes.
So students on which you conducted this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well done.
Thank you, Dr. Lamis.
Okay. I think no one has any more questions. Okay, one question is there
Yeah.
from Dr. Lamis. Okay.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Sharina for this highly informative presentation. It's a nice presentation. I actually benefited a lot, and I also took some notes that will benefit me because I also do some teaching in skill-based courses. The question is to incorporate this in because Dr. Sharina, you mentioned that one of the proposals is to incorporate this in skill-based courses. And as you can see now, the focus in skills-based courses, there is already focus on reading, but there is tendency also to extend our efforts to focus also on other academic skills like listening skill, for example, the note-taking skill. So don't you see that maybe incorporating such activities could be better if we use it in the foundation program, for example? And then maybe after the foundation in other skills-based courses, could be better to focus on all types of study skills, like not only reading, speaking, listening, because obviously we have all noticed that there's a gap in the listening and in the speaking of students, especially when we test them in the listening exams. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Lamis. I don't know if I do justice to answer this question, but I believe the foundation program have their own extensive reading, but it is not online. It was conducted prior to coronavirus. So I'm not really in a position to answer on behalf of the foundation. And second, what motivated this research is the IELTS reading score. In the IELTS reading statistic report, the speaking skill is the highest band. The lowest one is reading. So I think what we're doing in class is intensive reading skill, not extensive reading skill. The benefit of extensive reading will go into the other skills, speaking, listening, as well as writing, which, as I mentioned earlier, quite an extreme view from Professor Krashen, but he said the writing skill stems from the student's ability to read, to understand what they read. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, one more question is there. Did you notice any impact of students' discipline? I mean, if the students are from different engineering or different departments, so is there any impact?
The number of students who participated too small, 15 students, and majority of them are from the business school. So I could not make that statistical finding in terms of the disciplines of the students. So, yeah.
I hope that the answer is satisfactory for.
Yeah, because it's such a small number of students for me to do a division in terms of the discipline. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So no, for your presentation and your question answering. So participant, so that's it. Okay, for this session. So for next session, I would like to say to the participant that please stay with us. So we'll come back at 2 o'clock for the next session. In the next session, there are basically two presenters. Both are from the chemical engineering department, Dr. Mazharul Islam and Dr. Wasi. So please stay with us to enjoy the next session. Thank you so much.